Thompson on Talk Radio 1270. Do you think women should be able to serve in combat roles in the military? Should they be able to fight in combat battalions? Should they? We're going to take some calls on that at 5:05 today, right after the news. 248-356-1270. Talk a little bit about the fiscal cliff and the right way forward. Now, I laid out something that Steve Forbes said, and I think it's a clever way to go. That if you say we need to go back to an era of prosperity when America was doing really well, you'd probably have to go back to the Clinton era. We had some ups during Bush. We had a low unemployment. At times it was down around 4% or so. So there were some good times, but it really wasn't as prosperous when you look across the entire spectrum of government and the economy as it was under Clinton. That was a last really big hurrah. And he laid out that, fine, if you want to raise the tax rates on the super wealthy, as they say, only back to what it was under Clinton when everything was good, then you have to go back to all kinds of things. You have to go back to the spending limits, which were much less. You have to go back to some other things like no Obamacare. Sorry. You have to go back to a smaller government. You have to go back to freer markets and less government control, all kinds of things. And unfortunately, you'd have to go back to something that we can't go back to. You can't just manufacture. And that was a technology boom, a new industry, the tech bubble, and as the internet and web went crazy. You can't recreate those. It was new. Now, you could do something similar to it, but they're not going to have the same impact. This is the debate that they're going to continue to have about taxing the super rich. I'm not defending the super rich. I'm not super rich. I'm not even rich. I'm not even super middle class. I am barely average. Barely. So it's not that I think I'm trying to protect them, keep your money. It doesn't do me any good directly. I'm not one of those people. I don't know those people. It has to do with right and wrong. If you want to play the fairness game of what is fair for people to pay, because there's two ways to look at it, either fair or logical. Which is it? What is the game we want to play? Fair? What is fair? What does that have to do with the economy? What is fair? Who determines fair? Me? My fair and your fair are going to be very different. The word fair or just is subjective when it comes to all of those things. Who determines? A panel? Elected people? Fair is ridiculous. But if you do want to play the fair game, what would be fair is to look at the burden put on each person. And the rich at this point are paying a huge burden. Oh, I'll get to the common sense in a second. How you go forward, common sense or fair? But if you want to play their game and say fair, according to the Tax Policy Center. Now, if you don't know the Tax Policy Center, they are a left-leaning group. It was created by the Brookings Institute and the Urban Institute, which are both leftist. And they put out the federal tax statistics by income group. So this is not Doc Thompson. This is not a Republican right-wing think tank. This is a left-leaning group. They put out the federal tax statistics by income group. Americans at the lowest level of income earners, the bottom 20%, paid minus 3.8% of total federal income tax burden. Which means
they didn't pay at all.
And they got.
Yeah, exactly.
They got more back in income tax credits and stuff like that than they actually paid. So the bottom 20% actually got money back. They earned money by being poor. Think about that. Just by being the 20%, we said, you don't have enough, here you go. It's not that they didn't pay, plus we gave them some. Now, in the second level up, just above the 20%, the bottom 20%, they paid minus 4.3 of total federal tax burden. So they, too, weren't paying in, but rather taking out.
Making money.
Now, right there, before I go farther, do you see a problem with those two levels?
Yes.
First of all, you shouldn't be taking. The federal government shouldn't pay you to be poor. But did you hear the two percentages? The lowest 20% paid minus 3.8. The next one up, minus 4.3.
So even though they're actually earning more money, the government still gives them
more
money.
So if you want to talk fair as some utopian society, what is just and redistribute wealth, why is it set up that the people at the next level up that have a little bit more got more than the poor. The third level up, this would be people who have an average income of $44,000 a year. The average American makes somewhere between $35,000 and $45,000 a year, depending upon the market, taxes, inflation, stuff like that. That's about your average income. About 35, 45. So this would put this as the average American level. They paid 3.9% of the total federal income tax burden. They paid about $1 out of every $25 in income tax nationwide. 1 out of every 25. Those at the next level up, this would be the fourth level. This would be income between $58,000 to $102,000. They paid 15.1% of the total federal tax income burden. So, all told, the 80% of Americans whose income placed them in one of those first four brackets, starting at the bottom, the lowest up four brackets, combined to pay 10.9% of the total federal income tax burden. Now remember that. All the way up to $102,000, those four tax brackets, some people making money off of it, combined to pay 10.9% of the total federal tax income. Or 80% of the citizenry paid 1 out of every $9 to the federal income. 80%, 1 out of every $9. Conversely, the 1%, the top of the rung, the very rich, they paid 16.4% of the total federal tax burden, or 1 out of every $6. The bottom four, 80%, paid 1 out of $9. The super rich, 1 out of every $6. So, to put this in other words, the 1% paid more toward the workings of the federal government than the bottom 80% did, despite the fact that the bottom 80% collectively made more than 6 times as much money as the 1%. Collectively, they make far more. They make up 80%, yet they paid far less. So, fairness? Does that really sound fair? Some people making just by being poor? The poorest of the people not making as much as the people who are a little bit more wealthy. 80% collectively have more money, and yet they pay less. Something wrong there. The fair way to do it is either a fair tax or a flat tax, where everybody's in it for the same skin. Pay a percentage at the store or pay a percentage of income. I'll take either one at this point, as provided there are no ups, extras, exemptions, deductions. Done. That's the fair way to do it. But it's also the logical way to do it. That's what makes sense. Here's another logical observation. Tom Price is a congressman from Florida, or from Georgia. I met Tom Price, I think it was 2009, September 12th, 2009, when I spoke at the big march on Washington. Tom Price was one of only a couple of congressmen or a couple of politicians at all that were invited. Tom Price, Marsha Blackburn, and if I remember right, Jim DeMint. Those were the only three. So I got a moment, the opportunity to spend some time and talk to him. He's a doctor. As a doctor, yet actually gets some very simple, common sense approaches to the economy. This isn't even his area of expertise, and yet he understands how it works. He was being interviewed by Andrea Mitchell from MSNBC and explained something really, really important, something you need to remember whenever they talk about taxing the rich, that it actually isn't going to matter. Tax them all you want. Forget for a moment that, the argument from, a lot of Republicans, that it'll hurt the economy. Let's say they're wrong. Won't hurt the economy. You take that extra money from the super rich, it won't hurt it at all. Let's say they're right. But there's part that they're missing, and Tom Price lays it out.
Currently on a path under the president's plan for insolvency.
There are reliable studies that also show that you can't cap enough deductions and level the playing field enough to raise the kind of revenue that you're going to need. We're talking about $1.5 trillion here.
And you know well, Andrea, that the president's plan to increase taxes on the upper 2% covers the spending by this federal government not for 8 years, not for 8 months, not for 8 days, but not for 8 weeks, but for 8 days. 8 days only. Now, it's not a real solution. So again, I'm puzzled by an administration that seems to be more interested in raising tax rates than in gaining economic vitality.
Congressman Tom Price, what the president told one of your colleagues, Elijah Cummings, a bit ago at the White House today was, don't pack your bags, and I think that might be good advice for all of us. Thanks very much,
Andrea.
sir.
Take care.
Did you understand that? That if you go along with the president's plan to tax the super rich, to raise those rates to the Clinton-era levels, 2% covers 8 days of federal spending. That's it. That's what they would get.
8 days.
8 days. The other 348 days, don't worry about that.
We'll cover that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
We get 8 days covered. We're good.
Exactly.
8 days. If it was 2 months, it would be ridiculous. If it was 6 months, you'd say, guys, that's not doing very much. You've got to have to close. 8 days if they tax the super rich. So forget for a moment. Maybe the Republicans are wrong. Maybe it won't hurt the economy. You go get that money. But common sense tells you that's not the problem. That only covers 8 days. Those people not paying more is not the problem. That's only 8 days. 8 days of their spending. I'll give you another way. If you took the top 1% and you taxed them at a 100% income rate, you took everything they earn, 100%. It comes to just under $1 trillion. Our deficits, forget the national debt that we've racked up in the past. Our deficits for the last 5 years have been over $1 trillion, most of the time close to $1.5 trillion. So if you tax those people at 100%, your federal government still overspends hundreds of billions of dollars. In some cases, over $500 billion more. It wouldn't do anything. So that's not the way forward. It's not fair. It's not common sense. But what it is politics. It's good marketing. Taxing the rich, going about it, all of this nonsense that you hear, it's not governing, it's not common sense, and it's not fair. It's politics. The Democrats and the president have continued to build up support by saying that some people have it too good. It is plain and simple class warfare. And the Republicans were smart enough to play into this by nominating a billionaire as the guy to go against. Think how stupid that was for your common sense and governing out the window for a second, just from a political standpoint, right? You nominate the billionaire. President Obama is a millionaire. Every member of the Senate, a millionaire. Members of the House, if they're not millionaires, they will be millionaires. That's how it works. That's the game. And even though they're all millionaires and will want for nothing, and even though the president, when it's all said and done, he will end up in short order, as soon as he's done being president, worth $30, $40, $50 million in just a couple of years. He's already worth tens of millions. He could be at $100 million just by writing his memoirs, doing the book circuit, doing the speech circuit, all of that, ending up at the heads of the boards of some companies. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Even though that's what you're talking about. He was the average guy. He wasn't the wealthy guy because his opponent was super rich. The Republicans nominated a billionaire to run against people whose successful campaign was class warfare.
Yeah. I still can't believe the Republicans chose Mitt Romney as the nominee. Cannot believe it.
Folks, there are people whose job it is to just think politically. Political strategists, not the ones you even see on Fox News. Skip Lacombe, Republican strategist. They always put that, regardless of what you've ever accomplished. But there are real people in smoky back rooms who look at this stuff, and they have statistics and computer models and everything else. And not one of them said, whoa. The Democrats have been really successful at running a campaign of class warfare, of ginning up support with poor people, saying, you don't have enough, let's go get it from rich people. So they found somebody who's much wealthier than the president. See, had they found somebody who was the average person, then that person could have said, Mr. President, you're one of those rich guys. But as it was...
Romney couldn't use that defense.
Jeez. That's good stuff. All right, to tell you where this is going with the fiscal clip, Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois gave a little speech on the fiscal cliff. I want you to pay particular attention to this. He said, we cannot be so naive as to believe that just taxing the rich is going to solve our problems. Which is interesting right there, because he didn't say that during the campaign. He's saying it now. He didn't say it during the campaign because he didn't have the numbers that I just laid out that Tom Price talked about, that it only funds 8 days of the government. No, he had the numbers. It was just the politicking. He said it's painful and hard for us to talk about, but as liberals, as progressives, that's who he was talking to, you got to realize that that's not going to solve your problem. So at one hand, you go, wow, okay, he's got it together there. Dick Durbin's being a little honest there. So you can't tax the rich. That's not the way out of the fiscal cliff and fiscal trouble.
No.
Okay. But he also said he's opposed to voucher programs for Medicare, block grant systems for Medicaid, raising the eligibility age on programs, our safety nets like Social Security. He doesn't want to touch entitlements at all.
No, he doesn't want to touch entitlements at all.
Yeah, so you don't touch entitlements. You can't cut into that like the Republicans want. But we also can't tax the rich to get out of this either.
Okay, what is he looking at then?
Oh, he didn't offer any suggestions.
Oh, he just says things that are off limits.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess we have to go and raise more money somehow. He didn't offer any suggestions on how to do that. So you don't do tax the rich, and you don't cut into the budget there. You don't do that.
Well, and the USPS is also off limits.
All of that's off limits. So Dick Durbin has it all figured out. He's not sharing what that all figured out is, but it's all figured out somewhere. Women in combat, good idea or bad idea? Your call's coming up, 248-356-1270.